The cafeteria exploded in laughter when Admiral Marshall asked the janitor his call sign. But when Daniel Reed whispered two words, "Lone Eagle," every Navy SEAL in that room stopped breathing. This is the story of a single father who traded his legend for a mop bucket. A little girl who believed her dad was already a hero, and the moment an entire military base learned that true courage doesn't wear medals, it wears worn boots and carries love instead of guns. Before we begin, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. This story will take you through 5 incredible parts, and I promise you won't want to miss a single moment. Also, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel around the world. Now let's dive in. Your father is a coward. That's what the boy said to Emma Reed on her first day at Coronado Naval Base Elementary School. She was 8 years old, wearing a yellow dress her dad had ironed that morning, and she didn't cry. She just looked at Tommy Morrison, the son of Commander Morrison, and said what her father always told her. People mock what they don't understand. But Tommy laughed harder. My dad says your dad cleans toilets because he's too scared to be a real soldier. Emma walked away. She didn't tell her father. She never did. Because every afternoon when school ended, Daniel Reed would be waiting outside the chain-link fence in his janitor's uniform, holding a brown paper bag with her favorite sandwich, and his smile made everything else disappear. Daniel Reed had been cleaning the naval base for 3 years. Every morning at 0500 hours, he arrived before the sun. Every night at 1900 hours, he left after the officers had gone home to their families. In between, he mopped marble floors that reflected the faces of men who never looked at his. He scrubbed toilets used by admirals who wouldn't know his name if their lives depended on it. He emptied trash bins filled with classified documents and coffee cups, and he did it all with the kind of precision that made the head custodian say, "Daniel, you clean like you're preparing for an inspection." Daniel would just smile. Old habits. The truth was buried so deep that even he sometimes forgot it was there. Buried under 3 years of anonymity. Buried under the weight of choosing his daughter over his identity. Buried under the decision that still woke him up at night sweating, asking himself if he'd made the right choice. But every time doubt crept in, he'd walk into Emma's room and watch her sleep, and he'd remember why. The day everything changed started like any other day. Daniel was wiping down the officers' mess hall windows when he heard boots approaching. Sharp, deliberate, the kind of walk that announced rank before the person even spoke. "You missed a spot." Daniel turned. Admiral Grant Marshall stood there, arms crossed, jaw set like concrete. Marshall was 42, fit, decorated, and mean in the way that some men are when they've confused authority with superiority. Behind him stood 3 junior officers, grinning like hyenas. "Sir," Daniel said quietly. Marshall pointed at the window. "Right there. See it? Or do I need to get you glasses along with a better work ethic?" The junior officers snickered. Daniel looked at the window. It was spotless. He'd cleaned it twice. "I'll take care of it, sir." "You do that." Marshall didn't move. He stood there studying Daniel the way a predator studies prey. "You know what I don't understand? How a man ends up pushing a mop in a place like this. No ambition, no pride." Daniel kept his eyes down. "Just doing my job, sir." "Your job." Marshall laughed cold and sharp. "Let me ask you something, janitor. You ever wonder what it's like to actually matter? To have men follow you into hell because they trust you? Or is your biggest achievement getting the floor to shine?" One of the junior officers, Lieutenant Barnes, stepped forward. "Come on, Admiral. Guy's probably got a family to feed. Not everyone can be a warrior, right?" Marshall's eyes gleamed. "That's exactly right, Barnes. Not everyone has what it takes." He leaned closer to Daniel. "So tell me, janitor, if you could be anything at all, what would it be?" Daniel's jaw tightened. For just a second, something flickered in his eyes. Something old and dangerous and tired of hiding. But then he blinked and it was gone. I'd be exactly what I am, sir. A father. Marshall's face twisted. A father. How noble. He turned to his officers. You hear that, gentlemen? This man has achieved his dreams. He cleans up after real men, and he's proud of it. They walked away laughing. Daniel stood there, spray bottle in hand, and continued cleaning the already clean window, but his hands were shaking. That night, Emma asked him about his day while they ate spaghetti at their tiny kitchen table. Their apartment was small, barely 600 square feet, furnished with donated furniture and decorated with Emma's crayon drawings. But it was home. Daddy, why don't you wear a uniform like the other dads? Daniel looked up from his plate. I do wear a uniform, sweetheart. See? He pointed at his navy blue janitor's shirt. But not like the ones with all the shiny things. You mean medals? Emma nodded, twirling spaghetti on her fork. Tommy Morrison says his dad has 15 medals. He says medals mean you're brave. Daniel set down his fork. He reached across the table and took his daughter's small hand in his scarred, calloused one. Emma, listen to me. Medals don't make someone brave. Medals are just metal and ribbon. You want to know what makes someone brave? She nodded, eyes wide. Showing up every day for the people you love, even when it's hard, even when other people don't understand, even when the whole world tells you you're not enough. That's bravery. Is that why you show up for me? Daniel's throat tightened. That's exactly why. Emma smiled and went back to her spaghetti. But Daniel couldn't eat anymore. Because the truth was sitting in his chest like a stone, and it was getting heavier every day. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the base at his usual time. The sky was still dark stars, fading into that purple-gray that comes just before dawn. He liked this time. No officers, no mockery. Just him, and the silence, and the work. He was cleaning the hallway outside the briefing rooms when he heard voices. 2 officers walking fast, talking low. Admiral Carter wants a full tactical review by 0800. That's impossible. We'd need someone who actually understands asymmetric warfare, not just textbook theory. Well, unless we can resurrect Lone Eagle, we're screwed. Daniel's mop stopped moving. His whole body went rigid. He pressed himself against the wall, hoping they wouldn't notice him. Lone Eagle? The second officer laughed bitterly. Yeah, that would solve everything. Too bad he vanished. Best tactical mind the SEALs ever produced, and he just walks away. Doesn't make sense. Maybe he died. Maybe he got smart and realized this whole thing is a meat grinder. Their voices faded down the corridor. Daniel stood there frozen, gripping the mop handle so hard his knuckles went white. Lone Eagle. God, how long had it been since he'd heard that name out loud? 3 years. 4. It felt like another lifetime. Another person. He forced himself to keep moving, to keep cleaning, to keep pretending. But the memories were flooding back now, and he couldn't stop them. The desert. The smoke. The radio crackling with desperate voices. His team pinned down, outnumbered 5-1. The decision he'd made in 3 seconds that saved 12 lives and earned him a call sign he never asked for. Lone Eagle. Because he'd gone in alone when everyone else said it was suicide. Because he'd flown through hell and brought his brothers home. And then 6 months later, the phone call that changed everything. Mr. Reed, this is Child Protective Services. Your sister has been in an accident. She didn't make it. We have your niece here, Emma. She's asking for you. Daniel had been in Germany when he got the call. He was on a plane 12 hours later. He walked into that sterile CPS office, still wearing his combat boots, and there she was, 5 years old, clutching a stuffed rabbit, eyes red from crying. "Are you Uncle Daniel?" she'd whispered. And in that moment, everything else stopped mattering. The missions, the medals, the legend. None of it meant a damn thing compared to the little girl looking up at him like he was her last hope. He'd resigned 3 weeks later. No one understood. His commanding officer had called him a fool. His teammates had begged him to reconsider. But Daniel had made his choice. Emma needed a father, not a hero. She needed someone who would be there for breakfast and bedtime stories and scraped knees. She needed someone who would stay alive. So Lone Eagle died, and Daniel Reed Custodian was born. "Hey, you deaf," Daniel snapped back to the present. Admiral Marshall was standing 5 feet away, arms crossed, looking annoyed. "Sorry, sir, I didn't hear you approach." Marshall's eyes narrowed. "You know what your problem is? You're always in your own head, probably daydreaming about a better life while the rest of us actually work." He gestured down the hallway. "Briefing room 3. Someone spilled coffee all over the conference table. Clean it up. Now." "Yes, sir." Daniel grabbed his supplies and headed to the briefing room. But when he opened the door, he stopped. Because sitting at that conference table wiping coffee off classified documents was Admiral Elena Carter. Elena Carter was a legend in her own right. 45 years old, silver starting to thread through her black hair, 3 combat deployments, and a reputation for being the smartest strategic mind in the Pacific Fleet. She was also one of the few officers who ever looked Daniel in the eye. "Oh, thank God." She looked up stressed. "I just spilled an entire cup of coffee on these tactical reports. Admiral Marshall is going to kill me." Daniel set down his bucket. "Let me help." He moved quickly, efficiently, blotting the papers with precision. Elena watched him, and something in his movements made her pause. The way he handled the documents. The way he assessed the damage and prioritized what could be saved. It wasn't the movement of a janitor. It was the movement of someone who'd handled classified intel before. "You're good at this," she said carefully. "Just trying to help, ma'am." "No, I mean, you know what you're doing. These are tactical reports. You're not just wiping them, you're reading them." Daniel's hands stilled. "I'm not reading anything, ma'am, just cleaning." But Elena leaned forward, studying him. "What's your name?" "Daniel Reed." "How long have you worked here, Daniel?" 3 years. "And before that?" Daniel kept his eyes on the papers. "Before that doesn't matter." Elena opened her mouth to press further, but the door burst open. Admiral Marshall stormed in, saw the mess, and his face went nuclear. "Are you kidding me, Carter? I asked for those reports an hour ago." "I had an accident, sir, but Daniel here is helping." "Daniel." Marshall's eyes landed on Daniel like laser sights. "The janitor." "That's perfect. That's just perfect. Our tactical briefing is being salvaged by a man who cleans toilets." He laughed mean and sharp. "Tell me, janitor, you understand any of this? All these big words about strategy and warfare, or should I get you a picture book?" Daniel kept working. "I'm just helping with the coffee, sir." "Of course you are, because that's all you're good for." Marshall grabbed the papers half-soaked and shook them. "You know what this is a sign that this entire operation is amateur hour. We've got janitors handling classified documents and officers who can't hold a coffee cup." Elena stood up, her voice sharp. "Sir, it was my mistake. Don't blame—" "Oh, I'm not blaming him, Carter. I'm blaming you. For being careless. For being soft. For treating the help like they're people." The room went silent. Daniel's hands were still, his head down, but every muscle in his body was coiled tight. Emma's face flashed through his mind. The apartment. The life he'd built. Don't react. Don't give him a reason. But then Marshall did something he shouldn't have. He put his hand on Daniel's shoulder, hard and condescending, and said, "You know what I'm curious? Janitor. If you were running this operation, what would you do? Come on, humor me. What's your tactical assessment?" The room was dead quiet. Elena was staring. The 2 junior officers who'd followed Marshall in were watching, like this was entertainment. Daniel slowly straightened up. He looked at the tactical map spread across the table. Troop positions, supply lines, enemy territories. His mind, trained by 1,000 missions, processed it in seconds. He saw the vulnerabilities, the mistakes, the suicide strategy they were about to approve. "Sir, I'm just here to clean." "No, no, I insist." Marshall's grip tightened. "Give me your expert janitor opinion. What would you do?" Daniel's jaw clenched. He could walk away. He should walk away. But something in Marshall's eyes, something cruel and sharp and begging to be challenged, made the old part of him stir. The part that had led men. The part that had never backed down. "I'd reinforce the northern flank," Daniel said quietly. "Your supply line is exposed. If the enemy hits it, your entire operation collapses. And I'd pull back Team 3. They're walking into a kill box." The room went silent. Marshall's smile faltered. Elena's eyes went wide. "What did you just say?" Marshall's voice was low, dangerous. Daniel met his eyes for the first time. Really met them. And in that moment, something passed between them. Recognition. Challenge. A line crossed. "I said your plan is going to get people killed, sir." Marshall's face went red. "Who the hell do you think you are? You're a janitor. You don't know the first thing about—" "I know a bad plan when I see one." Daniel's voice was still quiet, but there was steel in it now. Years of command. Years of making life and death decisions in the space of a heartbeat. "I know what it looks like when someone cares more about looking decisive than being right. And I know what it sounds like when 12 men are screaming on a radio because their commanding officer sent them into hell for pride instead of strategy." The silence was deafening. Marshall looked like he'd been slapped. Elena was standing now, her hand on the table, staring at Daniel like she was seeing him for the first time. "Get out," Marshall whispered. "Sir," Elena started. "Get out." Marshall's voice was shaking. "You're fired. Pack your things and get off my base." Daniel nodded slowly. He picked up his bucket, his mop, and walked toward the door. But before he left, he turned back one more time. "For what it's worth, sir, I hope I'm wrong. I hope your plan works. But if it doesn't, those men deserve better than someone who treats truth like an insult." He walked out. The door closed behind him, and in the hallway alone, Daniel Reed, once Lone Eagle, leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. 3 years. He'd lasted 3 years. And now he had to tell Emma they were leaving. Daniel stood in the hallway for exactly 90 seconds. Not because he was scared, not because he was angry, but because he needed those 90 seconds to bury Lone Eagle one more time before he walked back into being just Emma's dad. His phone buzzed. The school. His chest tightened. "Mr. Reed. This is Principal Dawson. Emma's been in an altercation. Can you come pick her up?" "Is she hurt?" "No, but the other child is. We need you here immediately." Daniel was in his truck before the call ended. The 15-minute drive took 8. When he walked into the principal's office, Emma was sitting in a chair too big for her hands folded in her lap, yellow dress torn at the shoulder. Her knuckles were scraped. Across from her sat Tommy Morrison and his father, Commander James Morrison, who looked at Daniel like he was something stuck to his shoe. "Mr. Reed." Principal Dawson stood behind her desk, uncomfortable. "Your daughter punched another student." Daniel knelt in front of Emma. "Baby, are you okay?" She nodded, but her eyes were wet. "I'm sorry, Daddy." "What happened?" Commander Morrison cut in, his voice sharp. "What happened is your daughter assaulted my son, unprovoked. She needs to be expelled." "Tommy." Daniel kept his eyes on Emma. "Tell me what happened." Emma's voice was small. "He said you were a coward. He said you clean toilets because you're too scared to fight. I told him to stop. He wouldn't stop, so I made him stop." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at Tommy, then at Commander Morrison. "Your son has been bullying my daughter for weeks. Today he crossed a line." Morrison stood up. "My son told the truth. You are a janitor. What do you expect kids to say? I expect them to show respect, something their parents should teach them." Morrison's face flushed. "You want to talk about respect?" You a custodian lecturing me about respect. I've served 20 years in the Navy. I've earned my place. You push a mop. Daniel stood slowly. He was 3 inches taller than Morrison and 20 pounds heavier, all of it muscle, hidden under that janitor's uniform. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of every mission he'd ever run. I push a mop so my daughter has a father who comes home. That's my service now. If your son can't understand that, Commander, then maybe you need to teach him what real strength looks like. Morrison stepped forward. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you that if your son touches my daughter again, you and I will have a different conversation. Principal Dawson raised her hands. Gentlemen, please. Emma will be suspended for 3 days. Tommy will receive the same. I think that's fair. Fair. Morrison laughed. My son is the victim here. Daniel put his hand on Emma's shoulder. We're done here. Emma, get your things. They walked out together. Morrison called after them. You won't have a job by tomorrow, Reed. I'll make sure of it. Daniel didn't turn around. In the parking lot, he helped Emma into the truck, and they sat there in silence for a moment. Am I in trouble? Emma whispered. Daniel turned to her. Did he hurt you? She shook her head. Did you warn him to stop? 3 times. Then no. You're not in trouble. He touched her scraped knuckles gently. But Emma, listen to me. Fighting should always be the last choice. Always. But when someone pushes you past every line, when words don't work, when walking away means letting someone destroy your dignity, then you stand up. Just like you did. But now you lost your job. I didn't lose anything that matters. He cupped her face. You matter. Everything else is just noise. Emma threw her arms around his neck and cried. Not because she was scared, but because she finally understood what her father had given up. What he gave up every single day. That night, Daniel made grilled cheese sandwiches, and they watched Emma's favorite movie. But his phone kept buzzing. Text messages, voicemails, all from the same number. He finally checked it after Emma went to bed. Mr. Reed, this is Admiral Elena Carter. We need to talk. Please call me back. It's important. Daniel deleted the message. He didn't need important. He needed peace. He needed to find another job. He needed to figure out how they were going to pay rent next month. But at 2200 hours, someone knocked on his door. Daniel looked through the peephole and froze. Admiral Carter stood in the hallway out of uniform, wearing jeans and a navy sweatshirt. He opened the door. Ma'am, this isn't appropriate. I know. Can I come in? Daniel glanced back at Emma's closed bedroom door. 5 minutes. Elena stepped inside. She looked around the small apartment, taking in the modest furniture, the crayon drawings on the fridge, the tactical precision with which everything was organized. Military habits die hard. I went through your file, she said quietly. Daniel's stomach dropped. Ma'am, there is no file. She turned to face him. Before 3 years ago, Daniel Reed doesn't exist. No employment history, no military service, no records. Just a name, a social security number, and a custody agreement for Emma. She paused. So I went deeper, called in favors. And I found something interesting. A classified file, sealed, off limits even to me. But the name on that file, the name I wasn't supposed to see, was Lone Eagle. Daniel's face was stone. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop. Elena's voice was firm but not unkind. I'm not here to expose you. I'm here because this afternoon in that briefing room, you looked at a tactical map for 30 seconds and identified 3 critical flaws that our best analysts missed. You spoke with the authority of someone who's commanded men in combat. And when Admiral Marshall pushed you, you didn't flinch. You didn't back down. You just told the truth, even though it cost you everything. It didn't cost me everything. It cost me a job. There's a difference. Is there? Elena stepped closer. Daniel, that plan you criticized, We ran the simulation tonight. You were right. Team 3 would have walked into a kill box. The northern supply line was vulnerable. If we'd executed that operation, we would have lost 18 men, 18 fathers, 18 sons, because Marshall was too proud to see what you saw in 30 seconds. Daniel's hands clenched. Then fix it. You're an admiral. Fix it. I did. I changed the plan. But Marshall is furious. He's demanding to know who contradicted him. He's threatening to court-martial anyone involved. She paused. He doesn't know it was you, the janitor. If he finds out who you really are, he'll make it his mission to destroy you. Let him try. Daniel. Elena's voice softened. I lost my husband 4 years ago. He was a SEAL, killed in action in Yemen. For a long time I was angry. Angry at the Navy. Angry at God. Angry at every person who got to go home when he didn't. But then I realized something. He didn't die for the mission. He died because he believed some things are worth protecting. She gestured toward Emma's bedroom door. You walked away from everything to protect that little girl. That's not cowardice. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Daniel's throat was tight. Why are you here? Because tomorrow morning, Admiral Marshall is convening a tribunal. He wants to investigate how classified tactical information was leaked. He's looking for a scapegoat, and if he finds out that a janitor, a nobody in his eyes, outsmarted him in front of witnesses, he will bury you. Not just fire you, bury you. So what do you want me to do? Elena pulled out a business card and set it on the table. I want you to disappear. Tonight. Take Emma and leave. I have contacts. People who can help you start over somewhere safe. New identity. New life. No questions. Daniel stared at the card. You're asking me to run. I'm asking you to survive. For her. They stood there in silence. Outside, a car alarm went off. Someone shouted. Normal city sounds. Normal life. The life Daniel had fought so hard to build. I appreciate what you're trying to do, Admiral. But I'm done running. I ran from my call sign. I ran from my brothers. I ran from everything I was. I did it for Emma, and I'd do it again. But I won't teach her that when things get hard you disappear. Some things you stand for. Elena smiled sadly. You sound like my husband. Then he was a good man. He was, and he's dead. The words hung in the air, heavy and true. Daniel, I'm not asking you to be a coward. I'm asking you to be smart. Marshall has power. He has allies. He has resources. What do you have? Daniel looked toward Emma's bedroom door. I have everything that matters. Elena picked up the card. If you change your mind, call me. Anytime. Day or night. She walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think the SEALs lost their best operator when you left. But Emma gained the best father. That's not a loss. That's a choice. And it's one that takes more courage than any mission I've ever seen. After she left, Daniel sat in the dark living room for a long time. He thought about Germany, about the desert, about the radio calls and the blood and the medals they'd tried to give him, about the moment he'd walked into that CPS office and seen Emma's face. Some choices you make with your head, some you make with your heart, and some you make with the part of you that knows the difference between surviving and living. At 0300 hours, Daniel heard Emma's bedroom door open. She padded out in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Can't sleep? He asked. She climbed into his lap. I had a bad dream. Want to talk about it? We had to move away, and you were sad, and I didn't know how to make you happy again. Daniel held her close. Emma, listen to me. As long as we're together, I'm never sad. You understand, jobs come and go. Houses come and go. But us, we're forever. Promise. Promise. She fell asleep in his arms. Daniel carried her back to bed and tucked her in. Then he went to his room and opened the closet. In the back behind the winter coats was a box. He pulled it out and opened it. Inside was his uniform, his medals, his challenge coins, his citation for the Medal of Honor that he'd never accepted. And at the bottom, wrapped in cloth, was his call sign patch, Lone Eagle. Daniel stared at it for a long time. Then he closed the box, put it back in the closet, and shut the door. The next morning, Daniel dropped Emma off at her friend's house for a playdate. Then he drove back to the base. He showed his ID at the gate. The guard looked surprised. "Mr. Reed, I thought you were terminated." "I need to clear out my locker." The guard made a call, then waved him through. Daniel parked in his usual spot and walked into the custodial office. His supervisor, a retired Navy chief named Rodriguez, looked up from his desk. "Daniel, man, I'm sorry. I tried to fight it, but Marshall went over my head." "It's okay, Chief. I just came to get my stuff." "There's something else." Rodriguez handed him an envelope. "This came this morning. Official summons. You're required to appear at a tribunal at 1400 hours. Marshall's investigating a security breach." Daniel opened the envelope and read the summons. His name. His alleged crime. Unauthorized access to classified materials. Potential espionage. They were going for his throat. "Chief, I need a favor." "Anything. If I don't come back, there's a number in my phone under ice. Call it. Tell them to take care of Emma." Rodriguez's face went pale. "Daniel, what are you about to do?" "What I should have done 3 years ago." Daniel grabbed his locker contents and walked out. But instead of leaving the base, he walked toward the administrative building, toward the tribunal room, toward the fight he'd been avoiding. The hallways were busy with officers. Some nodded at him. Most ignored him. But one person stopped dead in her tracks. Admiral Carter. She was in full dress uniform, headed to the same tribunal. "Daniel, I told you to leave." "I know. They're going to destroy you." "Maybe. But if I run, I teach Emma that fear wins. I can't do that." Elena studied him. For a moment he saw something in her eyes. Respect. Sadness. Understanding. "Then I guess we're doing this." You think I'm letting Marshall railroad you? I'm testifying. I'm telling them exactly what happened. That you were helping me clean up my mess. That you made an observation. That you saved lives." Elena. It was the first time he'd used her first name. "They'll come after you too." "Let them." She smiled. "I didn't become an admiral by playing it safe. Besides, my husband always said that sometimes the only way to win is to stand your ground and make the other guy blink first." They walked together toward the tribunal room. Outside the door, Daniel stopped. Inside, he could hear voices. Marshall's voice, loud and confident, already spinning his narrative, already building his case. "Last chance," Elena said. "We can still walk away." Daniel thought about Emma, about her scraped knuckles, about the way she'd defended him even when the whole world told her not to, about the promise he'd made to her that they were forever. Some things you don't walk away from. He opened the door. The tribunal room fell silent. 7 officers sat at a long table. Admiral Marshall stood at a podium mid-sentence. Commander Morrison sat in the gallery smirking. And in the back taking notes was a JAG lawyer Daniel didn't recognize. Marshall's face went dark. "What is he doing here?" The presiding officer, a stern woman named Admiral Patricia Hayes, looked at Daniel. "Mr. Reed, you've been summoned to answer questions regarding a security breach. Do you understand the charges?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you have legal representation?" "No, ma'am." Hayes frowned. "I strongly advise you to obtain counsel before proceeding." "With respect, ma'am, I don't need a lawyer to tell the truth." Marshall slammed his hand on the podium. "This is outrageous. This man is a janitor. He has no security clearance. He has no right to even be in this building, let alone this tribunal." Elena stepped forward. "Admiral Marshall, Mr. Reed was summoned. He has every right to be here. And if you're so confident in your case, then let him speak." "Admiral Carter, this doesn't concern you." "Actually, it does. Because I'm the one who spilled coffee on those tactical reports. I'm the one who asked for help. And I'm the one who witnessed what really happened. The room erupted. Officers started talking over each other. Hayes banged her gavel. Order. Everyone sit down. Admiral Marshall, present your case. Marshall straightened his uniform. 3 days ago, classified tactical documents were accessed by an unauthorized individual. This individual, Mr. Daniel Reed, not only viewed these documents, but provided tactical analysis that contradicted official strategic planning. This constitutes a breach of security protocol and potentially espionage. Espionage. Daniel's voice was calm. I helped clean up spilled coffee. You did more than that. Marshall pointed at him. You read classified information. You analyzed it. You undermined my authority in front of junior officers. Who are you working for? What foreign government paid you to infiltrate this base? The accusation was so absurd that Daniel almost laughed. But he saw the tribunal's faces. They were taking this seriously. Marshall had framed it perfectly. Janitor, no background. Suspicious knowledge. In their world, it made sense. I'm not a spy, Daniel said quietly. Then explain how a janitor knows advanced tactical analysis. The room went silent. Every eye was on Daniel. This was it. The moment he'd been dreading for 3 years. The moment where he had to choose between his old life and his new one. Between Lone Eagle and Emma's dad. He looked at Elena. She nodded just slightly. Permission. Support. Daniel took a breath. I know tactical analysis because I used to be one of you. The words landed like a grenade. Marshall's smirk faltered. Hayes leaned forward. Morrison stopped taking notes. Explain, Hayes said. Before I was Daniel Reed Janitor, I was Lieutenant Commander Daniel Reed SEAL Team 6. My call sign was Lone Eagle. I served for 12 years, 3 combat deployments, 14 classified operations. And when my sister died and left behind a 5-year-old girl who needed a father, I walked away from all of it. I resigned. I took my niece, and I became exactly what you see now, a man who cleans floors so his daughter can sleep at night without wondering if her dad is coming home in a flag. The silence was absolute. Marshall's face had gone white. Hayes was staring at him like she'd seen a ghost. Even Morrison looked shaken. But it was Commander Rodriguez who spoke first from the back of the room where he'd been standing the whole time. Holy God. You're him. You're the legend. The operator who extracted Team 7 from Kandahar when everyone said it was impossible. Daniel didn't respond. But he didn't deny it either. Hayes found her voice. If this is true, why isn't it in your personnel file? Because I requested my service record be sealed and classified when I resigned. I didn't want the attention. I didn't want Emma growing up as the daughter of Lone Eagle. I wanted her to have a normal life. Marshall recovered his voice sharp. This is convenient. Very convenient. A janitor suddenly claims to be a decorated SEAL when he's caught committing espionage. I'm not claiming anything. Daniel's voice was hard now. I can give you names, dates, mission parameters. I can tell you what it feels like to make decisions in 3 seconds that determine whether 12 men live or die. I can describe every scar on my body and exactly which operation gave it to me. Or you can make one phone call to JSOC and ask them to unseal my file. Your choice. Hayes looked at her fellow tribunal members. They whispered among themselves. Finally, she turned back to Daniel. We'll verify your claims. Until then, you're confined to base. Dismissed. Daniel stood up. But before he could leave, Marshall stepped in front of him, his face twisted with rage and something else. Something that looked like fear. If you're really Lone Eagle, then you're a traitor. You abandoned your team. You abandoned your duty. For what? A kid? Daniel looked him dead in the eye. For my kid. And I'd do it again. Every single time. Because you can win 1,000 missions, Marshall, but if you lose yourself in the process, you haven't won anything. You've just survived. And survival isn't enough. Not for me. Not anymore." He walked out. Elena followed. In the hallway, she grabbed his arm. "That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen, or the stupidest." "Probably both. They're going to verify everything. When they find out you're telling the truth, this whole base is going to explode." Daniel looked out the window at the ocean. The same ocean he'd crossed 100 times on deployments. The same ocean that had brought him home to Emma. "Then let it explode. I'm done hiding." The phone call came 6 hours later. Daniel was sitting in a borrowed office, staring at the wall when Admiral Hayes walked in with a folder so thick it could stop a bullet. Her face was unreadable. "We made the call to JSOC," she said, closing the door behind her. "They unsealed your file. All 47 pages of it." Daniel didn't move. "And—" Hayes sat down across from him and opened the folder. She read in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then she looked up, and her eyes were different. Softer. Almost reverent. "Lieutenant Commander Daniel James Reed. SEAL Team 6. 12 years of service. 3 Silver Stars, 2 Bronze Stars with Valor, a Navy Cross, and a Medal of Honor you refuse to accept." She paused. "Operation Nightfall, Kandahar Province. You went into a compound alone to extract 7 captured SEALs when command had already written them off as KIA. You took 13 enemy combatants by yourself, sustained 4 gunshot wounds, and carried 2 wounded teammates on your back for 3 miles through hostile territory. The after-action report says you shouldn't have survived the first 30 seconds. "The report wasn't there," Daniel said quietly. "It doesn't know what happened." "What did happen?" Daniel looked at his hands. Hands that had pulled triggers. Hands that had carried brothers. Hands that now braided Emma's hair every morning. "I got lucky. And 7 men got to go home to their families. That's what happened." Hayes closed the folder. "There are 16 other operations listed here. Classified missions I can't even read about without clearance I don't have. Your commanding officers all say the same thing. That you were the best tactical mind they'd ever seen. That men would follow you into hell because they knew you'd bring them back. That when you resigned, the SEALs lost more than an operator. They lost a legend, you. Legends are just stories people tell. I'm just a man who made a choice. A choice that saved your daughter." Hayes leaned forward. "Mr. Reed, I have 3 sons, all serving, all following in my footsteps, and every single day I wake up terrified that I'll get the call that one of them isn't coming home. When I read your file, when I saw that you walked away from everything to raise Emma, I didn't see a traitor. I saw a man who understood something that most of us forget. That the people we fight for matter more than the fight itself. Admiral Marshall doesn't see it that way." Hayes's face hardened. "Admiral Marshall is a lot of things. Decorated, intelligent, politically connected. But he's never been in real combat. He's never had to make the choices you've made. And when you walked into that briefing room and exposed the flaws in his plan, you didn't just embarrass him. You terrified him. Because you proved that all his rank, all his medals, all his authority means nothing compared to real experience. So what happens now? Now you're cleared of all charges. The espionage accusation is dropped, and effective immediately, you're reinstated with full honors and back pay." Daniel's head snapped up. "What?" "The Secretary of the Navy himself signed off on it. You're being offered a position as a senior tactical advisor. 6-figure salary. Full benefits. Your own office. You'd be consulting on high-level operations, training the next generation of operators, and—" "No." Hayes blinked. "I'm sorry." "I said no. I appreciate the offer, but my answer is no." "Mr. Reed, do you understand what I'm offering you? This is a chance to come back, to use your skills, to serve again. You'd be home every night. You'd still have time with Emma. You'd be making a real difference." Daniel stood up. "I am making a real difference. Every morning I pack my daughter's lunch. Every afternoon I help her with homework. Every night I read her stories and tell her she's loved. That's my mission now. That's my service. And it's more important than any operation I ever ran." But you'd still have that. This position would give you both. You don't understand. Daniel's voice was strained. For 3 years I've been nobody. Just a janitor. Just Emma's dad. And it's been the hardest, most exhausting, most important thing I've ever done. Every single day I choose her over everything else. Over recognition. Over career. Over the part of me that misses the adrenaline and the brotherhood and the purpose. I choose her. And if I take that position, if I go back to being Lieutenant Commander Reed, then I'm not choosing her anymore. I'm choosing me. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. I understand. But the offer stands. If you ever change your mind, the door is open. I won't. But thank you. There is one more thing. Hayes pulled out another document. Admiral Marshall has filed a formal complaint. He's demanding that you be barred from the base permanently. He claims your presence is disruptive and undermines good order and discipline. Then I'll leave. Emma and I will move. Find another place, another life. Or, Hayes said carefully, you could fight back. You could stay. You have every right to be here, and Marshall knows it. That's why he's scared. Before Daniel could respond, the door burst open. Admiral Carter walked in, her face flushed, holding her phone. You need to see this. Now. She turned her phone around. On the screen was a video. Grainy security footage from the tribunal room. But someone had recorded it and posted it online. The video showed Daniel's confession. His revelation. The moment he admitted to being Lone Eagle. It's gone viral, Elena said. 2 million views in 3 hours. Every military forum, every veteran page, every news outlet is picking it up. The headline everywhere is, Legendary SEAL gave up everything to raise his daughter. You're not anonymous anymore, Daniel. The whole world knows. Daniel's blood ran cold. Emma. I need to get to Emma. He ran, through the hallways, through the parking lot, into his truck. He called Emma's friend's mother as he drove. Mrs. Chen, it's Daniel Reed. Is Emma okay? She's fine. They're watching a movie. Is everything all right? Don't let her see any phones or computers. Don't let her watch the news. I'm coming to get her now. Daniel, you're scaring me. What's going on? Just keep her safe, please. I'll explain when I get there. He made the 20-minute drive in 12. When he arrived, Mrs. Chen met him at the door concerned. Daniel, what's happening? I need Emma, now. Emma appeared behind Mrs. Chen, confused. Daddy, what's wrong? Daniel scooped her up without explanation. We're going home, baby. In the truck, Emma kept asking questions. Daniel kept not answering. His mind was racing. The video was everywhere. His face, his name, his story. Every detail he'd worked so hard to hide was now public knowledge. Every reporter, every veteran, every person with an internet connection knew exactly who he was. And Emma had no idea. When they got home, Daniel locked the door and closed all the blinds. He sat Emma down on the couch and knelt in front of her. Emma, something happened today. Something big. And I need to tell you about it before someone else does. You're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. But you need to hear this from me. He took her hands. You know how I clean the base. How I work as a janitor. She nodded. Before I did that, I was a soldier. A Navy SEAL. I did dangerous things, important things. And I was good at it. Really good. So good that people started calling me by a special name. Lone Eagle. Emma's eyes went wide. Like a superhero. No, baby, not like a superhero. Just a soldier who did his job. But today people found out who I used to be. And now everyone knows. It's on the internet, on the news, everywhere. Is that bad? It's complicated. I left that life behind when your mom died, when you came to live with me, because being your dad was more important than being Lone Eagle. But now people know both names, and things might get different. People might treat us differently. They might ask questions. They might not understand why I chose you over everything else. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm glad you chose me. Daniel's throat tightened. Me too, baby. Me too. Daddy, can I ask you something? Anything. Were you scared when you were a soldier? Daniel thought about the missions, the gunfire, the moments when he wasn't sure he'd make it home. Yeah, I was scared a lot. But you did it anyway. Yeah. Then you're brave. Emma hugged him tight. And even if you're not Lone Eagle anymore, you're still my hero. Daniel held his daughter and tried not to cry. But the tears came anyway. Years of them. Years of carrying the weight of who he used to be and who he'd become. Years of wondering if he'd made the right choice. And in that moment, holding Emma, feeling her small arms around his neck, he knew. He knew with absolute certainty that he'd choose her again. Every single time. The knock came an hour later. Hard. Official. Daniel looked through the peephole and saw uniforms. Lots of them. He opened the door to find Admiral Hayes, Admiral Carter, and 5 other officers standing on his doorstep. Mr. Reed, Hayes said formally. May we come in? Daniel let them in. Emma peeked out from her bedroom curious. Elena gave her a warm smile. Hayes stood in the center of the small living room, looking almost uncomfortable. Mr. Reed, in light of recent events and the public disclosure of your service record, the Secretary of the Navy has issued new orders. Daniel's jaw clenched. I already told you I'm not coming back. This isn't about coming back. This is about recognition. Hayes pulled out an official document. Tomorrow at 0900 hours, there will be a ceremony on the base. You are being awarded the Medal of Honor you refused 3 years ago. You are being formally recognized for your service, and you are being offered a full honorable discharge with all benefits, back pay, and veteran status. I already have an honorable discharge. You have a resignation. This is different. This is the Navy acknowledging what you did, what you sacrificed, what you chose. Hayes paused. You don't have to accept the medal. You don't have to attend the ceremony. But Mr. Reed, Daniel, there are men alive today because of you. Fathers who got to watch their children grow up because you brought them home. They deserve to say thank you, and you deserve to hear it. Daniel looked at Emma. She was watching from the hallway, taking in everything. Can she come? Daniel asked. To the ceremony? Hayes smiled. She's the guest of honor. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow, about standing in front of the base that had mocked him, about accepting recognition for things he'd tried so hard to forget, about Emma seeing him not as her dad who made grilled cheese, but as Lone Eagle the legend. At 0200 hours, he got up and walked to Emma's room. She was awake too, sitting up in bed with her stuffed rabbit. Can't sleep either. Daniel sat on the edge of her bed. I'm nervous. About tomorrow. Me too. Will there be a lot of people? Probably. Will they ask me questions? Maybe, but you don't have to answer anything you don't want to. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Daddy, are you sad that you're not Lone Eagle anymore? Daniel thought about it. Really thought about it. Sometimes, I miss the guys I served with. I miss feeling like I was making a difference. But then I look at you and I realize I'm still making a difference. Maybe the biggest difference of my life. Because you're going to grow up and do amazing things, Emma. And I got to be part of that. I got to help shape who you become. That's better than any mission. But what if I mess up? What if I'm not amazing? Then you'll be normal. And normal is pretty great too. He kissed her forehead. Get some sleep, baby. Tomorrow's a big day. But morning came too fast. Daniel dressed Emma in her best dress and put on a suit he'd bought at Goodwill. They drove to the base in silence. At the gate, the guard saluted. Actually saluted. Daniel didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded. The ceremony was being held in the main courtyard. As they approached, Daniel saw hundreds of people. Officers in dress uniforms, enlisted personnel, press with cameras. And in the front row, a group of men around his age, some in wheelchairs, some with visible scars, all wearing SEAL tridents. His team. The men he'd saved. The brothers he hadn't seen in 3 years. One of them, a man named Marcus Webb, with a prosthetic leg, saw Daniel and started to cry. He stood up, balancing on his crutch, and saluted. Then one by one, the other SEALs stood and saluted. Not the formal military salute, but the silent acknowledgement of warriors who'd bled together. Daniel's vision blurred. Emma squeezed his hand. "Are those your friends, Daddy?" "Yeah, baby, those are my friends." They were escorted to the stage. Admiral Hayes was there, Admiral Carter, the Secretary of the Navy, and off to the side, looking like he'd swallowed glass, was Admiral Marshall. Hayes stepped to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to honor a man who exemplifies the highest values of the United States Navy. A man who served with distinction, who saved countless lives, and who made the ultimate sacrifice. Not his life, but his identity. Not his future, but his past. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Reed. Call sign Lone Eagle, you are being awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of your life, above and beyond the call of duty, during Operation Nightfall." The Secretary of the Navy stepped forward with the medal, but before he could place it around Daniel's neck, Daniel raised his hand. "Sir, with respect, I can't accept this." The crowd gasped. The Secretary looked confused. "Commander Reed, this is one of the highest honors." "I know what it is, sir, and I'm grateful, but the men who deserve medals are standing right there." Daniel pointed to his old team. Marcus Webb, who lost his leg protecting me. James Chen, who took a bullet meant for me. Robert Santos, who carried wounded teammates while he was wounded himself. They're the heroes. I just did my job. Marcus Webb stood up, tears streaming down his face. "Daniel, you saved our lives. And you would have done the same for me. But we didn't. You did. Alone. That's why you're Lone Eagle." Daniel looked at Emma. She was watching him with pride so pure it hurt. Then he looked at the medal in the Secretary's hands, and he made a decision. "I'll accept this medal on one condition, that it's not for me. It's for every father who chose their child over their career. Every person who walked away from glory to do the quiet hard work of love. Every veteran who came home and fought a different kind of battle, the battle to be present, to be whole, to be human. This medal isn't mine. It belongs to all of us." The silence was profound. Then Admiral Carter started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Then the SEALs joined in. Then the entire courtyard erupted in applause. Not polite ceremonial applause, but real thunderous, emotional applause. The Secretary placed the medal around Daniel's neck. As he did, he whispered, "Your daughter is watching. Show her what true strength looks like." Daniel turned to the crowd. He saw faces he recognized. Officers who'd ignored him. Enlisted personnel who'd walked past him in the halls. Commander Morrison, who'd mocked him, now standing with tears in his eyes. And he saw Admiral Marshall standing alone, looking smaller somehow. Daniel stepped to the microphone. "I'm not good at speeches. I'm better at action. But I want to say something to everyone here. Every person who saw me mopping floors and thought I was nothing. Every person who judged me for choosing my daughter over my career. Every person who thinks that rank and medals and titles define worth. You're wrong. Your worth isn't what you wear, it's what you carry. And I carry love. For my daughter, for my brothers, for the men I served with and the man I've become. That's my uniform now, and it's the only one that matters." The applause came again, even louder. Daniel stepped back from the microphone and looked at Emma. She was beaming. Hayes approached him. "That was quite a speech. It was the truth. Truth doesn't always make friends." "I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to raise my daughter." Hayes smiled. "And you're doing a hell of a job." She paused. "There's someone who wants to speak with you. In private." She gestured to the side. Admiral Marshall was standing there waiting. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I'll be right back," he told Emma, handing her to Elena. Daniel walked over to Marshall. They stood face to face, silent for a long moment. Then Marshall spoke, his voice low and strained. "I owe you an apology." Daniel said nothing. "When you corrected my tactical plan, when you exposed my mistakes, I was humiliated. Angry. I wanted to destroy you. But then I read your file. I saw what you'd done, what you'd given up, and I realized something." Marshall's voice cracked. "I have 2 sons, both at the Naval Academy, both following in my footsteps, and I haven't seen them in 6 months. I've missed birthdays, holidays, everything. Because I was too busy building my career, too busy climbing the ladder, too busy being Admiral Marshall to be their father." "It's not too late," Daniel said quietly. "It's never too late to choose them." "Isn't it? They barely know me. When I call, they're polite, distant. They respect me, but they don't know me. And whose fault is that? Yours. But you can fix it. Today. Right now. Call them. Visit them. Show up. Not as an admiral, as their dad." Marshall looked at Daniel with something like desperation. "How do you do it? How do you give up everything and not regret it?" "I didn't give up everything. I gave up my past to have a future. There's a difference." Daniel glanced at Emma, who was laughing with Elena. "Every night when I tuck her in, when I read her stories, when I tell her I love her, I know I made the right choice. Because she knows me. Really knows me. Not Lone Eagle. Not Lieutenant Commander Reed. Just Dad. And that's worth more than every medal, every mission, every moment of glory I ever had." Marshall nodded slowly. "I'm sorry. For everything. For mocking you. For trying to destroy you. For being too blind to see what real strength looks like." Apology accepted. Marshall held out his hand. Daniel shook it. And in that moment, something shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. The understanding that comes when 2 men recognize their own battles in each other's eyes. As Marshall walked away, Marcus Webb approached, leaning on his crutch. "Danny, God, it's good to see you." They embraced hard and long. When they pulled apart, Marcus was crying. "I'm sorry I didn't stay in touch," Daniel said. "I just needed to disappear." "I get it. We all did. But man, we missed you. The team hasn't been the same since you left. You guys are doing fine without me." "No, we're surviving without you. There's a difference." Marcus looked at Emma. "Is that her? Is that Emma?" "Yeah. She's beautiful. Looks like her mom." "She does." Marcus smiled. "You did good, Danny. You chose right. Some of us we kept serving because we didn't know what else to do. But you found something bigger than the mission. You found purpose. Real purpose. Raising her is the hardest mission I've ever had. But you're winning. I can see it in her eyes. She knows she's loved. That's everything." They talked for a while longer, catching up on 3 years of absence. Other team members joined in. There were tears, laughter, stories. Brotherhood that time hadn't eroded. Eventually, Emma tugged on Daniel's sleeve. "Daddy, I'm hungry." Daniel picked her up. "Let's get you some food, baby." As they walked toward the commissary, people stopped them, shook Daniel's hand, thanked him, asked for photos. Emma stayed close to his side, overwhelmed by the attention. In the commissary, they sat at a table by the window. Emma ate chicken nuggets while Daniel watched the ocean. "Daddy," Emma said through a mouthful of nuggets. "Yeah, baby." "I'm proud of you." Daniel's eyes stung. "I'm proud of you too." "I didn't do anything." "You loved me when everyone else thought I was nothing. That's everything." They finished eating and walked back to the truck. As Daniel buckled Emma into her seat, Admiral Carter jogged up to them. "Daniel, wait, there's one more thing." "Elena, I appreciate everything, but we're done. We just want to go home." "I know. But you should see this." She held up her phone. On the screen was a news article. The headline read, "Janitor reveals himself as legendary Navy SEAL who chose fatherhood over fame." Below it were thousands of comments. Veterans sharing their own stories. Parents talking about sacrifice. People from all over the world expressing admiration and respect. "You've started something," Elena said softly. "People are talking about what really matters, about choosing family over career, about redefining strength. You didn't just accept a medal today, Daniel. You changed the conversation." Daniel read a few comments. One caught his eye. It was from a man named Thomas Rivera. "I'm a Marine. I did 3 tours. I came home and my son didn't recognize me. I've spent 5 years trying to rebuild that relationship. Today, I read about Daniel Reed, and I realized I've been approaching it wrong. I've been trying to be the hero my son needs, when all he really needs is his dad. Thank you, Daniel. You saved my life today, again." Daniel's hands were shaking. He gave the phone back to Elena. "I'm not a hero. I'm just doing what any father would do." "No," Elena said firmly. "Most fathers talk about priorities. You live them. That's rare. That's powerful. And whether you want it or not, you're an example now. For every person struggling to balance duty and love, for every parent wondering if they're enough, for every veteran trying to find their place in civilian life, you showed them it's possible." Daniel looked at Emma through the truck window. She was playing with her stuffed rabbit, completely oblivious to the weight of the moment. "All I wanted was to give her a normal life. And you did. But in the process, you gave a lot of other people hope." Elena squeezed his shoulder. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be even crazier. Every news outlet wants an interview. Every veteran organization wants you to speak. You're not anonymous anymore." "I never wanted famous. I wanted invisible." "I know. But sometimes the world needs to see what invisible looks like, so they remember what matters." Daniel drove home in silence. That night, after Emma went to bed, he sat on the couch and turned on his phone. It had been off all day. When it powered up, it exploded with notifications. Hundreds of them. Messages, emails, friend requests, interview requests. He scrolled through them, overwhelmed. But one message stood out. It was from a number he didn't recognize. "Daniel, this is James Chen, from the team. I just wanted to say thank you. Not for saving my life, though. I'm grateful for that too. But for showing me what it means to really love someone. I have a daughter now. She's 3. And after today, after hearing you speak, I decided to request a transfer to a non-combat position. I want to be there for her, like you're there for Emma. You changed my life twice, once in Kandahar, once today. Thank you, brother." Daniel read the message 3 times. Then he typed a reply. "You don't owe me thanks. Just love her. Show up. That's all that matters." He turned off his phone and sat in the dark. Tomorrow would bring more attention, more questions, more people wanting pieces of him. But tonight he was just Emma's dad, and that was enough. The morning after the ceremony, Daniel woke to find news vans parked outside his apartment building. He counted 7 of them through the blinds, reporters with cameras and microphones waiting like vultures. Emma was still asleep, clutching her rabbit, oblivious to the chaos outside. Daniel made coffee and sat at the kitchen table staring at his phone. 43 missed calls, 68 text messages, 12 voicemail notifications. He didn't listen to any of them. Instead, he made pancakes, shaped like hearts the way Emma liked them, and waited for her to wake up. When she finally emerged from her room, rubbing sleep from her eyes, she climbed into his lap without a word. They sat there for a long time, her head against his chest, his arms around her small frame. "There are people outside," she said quietly. "I know. They want to talk to you." "Yeah. Do you have to talk to them?" Daniel kissed the top of her head. "Not if you don't want me to." "I don't like it. All the people, all the questions. I just want it to be us again." "Me too, baby. Me too. But the knock came anyway. 3 sharp raps on the door. Daniel looked through the peephole and saw Elena Carter standing there in civilian clothes holding 2 paper bags. He opened the door. "You brought breakfast. And a plan." Elena slipped inside quickly before any reporters could rush the door. She set the bags on the counter. Bagels, coffee, and a way out of this mess. Emma peeked out from behind Daniel's leg. Elena crouched down to her level. "Hi, Emma. I'm Elena. Your dad and I work together. Well, we used to work together. It's complicated." Emma studied her carefully. "Are you a soldier too?" "I'm an admiral. That's kind of like a boss soldier." "Did you know my dad when he was Lone Eagle?" "No, I wish I had, but I know him now. And I think he's pretty amazing." Emma nodded seriously. "He is. He makes the best grilled cheese." Elena smiled. "That's a very important skill." She stood up and looked at Daniel. "We need to talk. The press isn't going away. In fact, it's getting worse. 3 national news networks want exclusive interviews. A publisher called about a book deal. A film producer left 4 messages about your story. This is spiraling. I don't want any of that." "I know. But you need to control the narrative before it controls you. So here's what I'm proposing. 1 interview, 1 press conference. You tell your story your way on your terms. Then you ask for privacy. Most journalists will respect that. The ones who don't, well, the Navy has lawyers for that." Daniel poured coffee. "And if I say no, then they'll keep digging. They'll interview everyone who ever knew you. They'll camp outside Emma's school. They'll turn your life into a circus because speculation sells better than truth. But if you give them the truth, the real story, then there's nothing left to speculate about." "Daddy." Emma tugged his shirt. "What's she talking about?" Daniel picked her up. "She's talking about how sometimes you have to face hard things so they stop being scary. Like when you had to go to the dentist, remember? You didn't want to go, but after we went it wasn't so bad." "But this isn't the dentist. This is people asking about Lone Eagle." "Yeah, it is." Emma thought about this. Then she said, "Will they ask about me?" "Probably." "What will you tell them?" Daniel looked into his daughter's eyes. "I'll tell them that you're the reason I'm standing here. That every choice I made for you. That you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Is that okay?" Emma nodded. Then she whispered, "Can I be there when you talk to them?" "You want to be there. I want them to see that you're not just Lone Eagle. You're my daddy, and that's better." Elena's eyes were shining. "Smart kid." "She gets it from her mother," Daniel said quietly. They spent the next hour preparing. Elena made calls, arranged the press conference for that afternoon at the base. Daniel showered and put on his one good suit. Emma insisted on wearing her yellow dress, the same one she'd worn to school the day Tommy Morrison called Daniel a coward. "This is my brave dress," she explained. "I wore it when I stood up to Tommy. Now I'm wearing it to stand up with you." The drive to the base was surreal. Reporters followed them in cars on motorcycles, trying to get shots through the windows. At the gate, military police had to hold back the crowd. Inside the main auditorium was packed. Every seat filled, cameras everywhere. The energy was electric and suffocating. Admiral Hayes met them backstage. "Are you sure about this? Once you step out there, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure. And Emma. She doesn't have to do this." Daniel looked down at his daughter. "You still want to come with me?" Emma squeezed his hand. "I'm not scared if you're not scared. I'm terrified." "Me too. But we're together, so it's okay." Hayes smiled. "She's right. Okay, here's how this works. I'll introduce you. You'll make a statement. Then we'll take questions. I'll moderate, so if anything gets inappropriate, I'll shut it down. Ready?" Daniel took a deep breath. "Ready." They walked out onto the stage. The crowd erupted. Not applause exactly. Something more primal. recognition, respect. The kind of noise that happens when people witness something they've only heard about in stories. Daniel sat at the table with Emma beside him, her small hand in his large one. Elena and Hayes flanked them like guardians. Hayes spoke into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. This is Lieutenant Commander Daniel Reed, retired Navy SEAL call sign Lone Eagle, and his daughter Emma. Commander Reed has agreed to answer questions about his service and his decision to leave the military. But before we begin, he'd like to make a statement." Daniel leaned toward the microphone. For a moment he couldn't speak. The lights were too bright, the cameras too close, the weight of every eye in that room pressing down on him. Then Emma squeezed his hand. He cleared his throat. "My name is Daniel Reed. 3 years ago, I was Lieutenant Commander Reed, SEAL Team 6. I ran missions most people will never know about in places most people will never go. I saved lives. I took lives. I did things I'm proud of, and things that still wake me up at night. And then my sister died, and her daughter needed a home. I had a choice. Stay in the Navy and let Emma grow up in the foster system, or resign and become her father. For me, it wasn't a hard choice. It was the only choice. So I walked away. I became a janitor because it was steady work with steady hours, and it let me be home for Emma every night. For 3 years, people mocked me, called me a coward, treated me like I was nothing, and I let them. Because their opinions didn't matter. Only Emma mattered. That's my story. That's the truth. I'm not a hero. I'm a father who made a choice, and I'd make it again." The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then someone in the back started clapping. Then another. Then the entire room was on its feet applauding. Not for Lone Eagle, for Daniel, for the choice, for the truth. Hayes waited for the noise to die down. "We'll now take questions. Please state your name and outlet." A woman in the front row stood. "Sarah Mitchell, Associated Press. Commander Reed, do you regret leaving the SEALs?" Daniel looked at Emma. "No, I don't regret it. I miss my brothers. I miss the sense of purpose. But every night when I tuck Emma into bed, when I help her with homework, when I make her breakfast, I know I made the right choice. She needed a father more than the Navy needed another operator." Another reporter stood. Mike Chen, Washington Post. "What was it like going from a decorated SEAL to a janitor? How did you handle the loss of status?" Status is just other people's perception. It doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do when no one is watching, when no one is applauding. I cleaned floors with the same discipline I ran missions, because the work itself doesn't make you who you are. How you do the work makes you who you are. A third reporter, younger, almost nervous. Jessica Torres, Military Times. "Emma, if I may ask, what's it like having Lone Eagle as your dad?" Emma leaned toward the microphone, her voice small but clear. "I don't have Lone Eagle as my dad. I have Daniel Reed, and he's the best dad in the world. He makes me pancakes. He braids my hair even though he's not very good at it. He reads me stories every night. That's my dad, not some name people call him." The room went quiet. Then Sarah Mitchell spoke again, her voice softer. "Emma, that's beautiful. Commander Reed, how do you respond to critics who say you wasted your talents, that the Navy invested millions in your training and you threw it away?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "The Navy trained me to protect people, to put others before myself, to understand that some things are worth dying for. But they also taught me that some things are worth living for. Emma is worth living for. And if that's wasting my talents, then I'm proud to be wasteful. But you could have served and raised her. Other SEALs have families. Other SEALs also have wives support systems, families who can help when they're deployed. Emma had no one but me. I was it, her only chance at having a parent. So yeah, I could have stayed in and deployed 6 months out of the year and hoped she'd be okay. Or I could be there, every day, every moment. I chose to be there." A man in the middle section stood. Robert Lawson, NBC. There are reports that you were offered a high-level advisory position and turned it down. Why? Because advisory positions still mean travel, still mean time away, still mean choosing the job over my daughter. I'm done with that. My mission now is raising Emma. Everything else is secondary. Even at the cost of serving your country. I am serving my country. I'm raising a citizen, a person who will go out into the world and hopefully make it better. That's service. It just doesn't come with a uniform. Lawson pressed on. But doesn't your country deserve your expertise? Your tactical mind? Aren't you being selfish by keeping that to yourself? Elena leaned forward, her voice sharp. Excuse me, but Commander Reed gave 12 years and his body to this country. He has scars, injuries, and trauma that he'll carry forever. He doesn't owe anyone anything more than he's already given. And frankly, the fact that you're questioning his choice says more about our priorities as a society than it does about his service. The room buzzed. Lawson sat down, chastened. Another reporter stood, an older man with gray hair. Tom Bradley, retired Marine now with Veterans Today. Commander Reed, I think I speak for a lot of veterans when I say thank you. Not just for your service, but for showing us that it's okay to choose family. That it's okay to walk away from the glory for something more important. My question is, what do you want people to take away from your story? Daniel thought about it, really thought about it. Emma was watching him, waiting. I want people to understand that strength isn't just about what you can endure. It's about what you choose to protect. I want fathers to know that being present is more important than being perfect. I want veterans to know that your value doesn't end when your service does. And I want Emma to know that she is loved. Completely. Unconditionally. And that I would make the same choice 1,000 times over. Emma started crying. Not sad crying, happy crying. She buried her face in Daniel's shoulder, and he held her while cameras flashed and the world watched. Hayes stood up. I think that's enough for today. Thank you all for coming. Commander Reed will not be doing any additional interviews. We ask that you respect his privacy and allow him to live his life with his daughter. But as they started to leave the stage, Admiral Marshall stood up from where he'd been sitting in the back. The room went silent. Everyone knew the history. The tribunal, the accusations, the apology. Marshall walked to the microphone. Commander Reed, may I say something? Daniel stopped, turned, nodded. Marshall's voice was thick with emotion. 2 days ago, I tried to destroy you. I accused you of espionage. I mocked you for being a janitor. I treated you like you were nothing. And you know what you did. You showed me what real courage looks like. Not the courage to fight. The courage to love. My sons, they're at the academy right now. And after your ceremony yesterday, I called them. For the first time in months, we actually talked. Not about grades or performance or expectations. We talked about life. About what matters. And they told me they didn't want to be admirals like me. They wanted to be fathers like you. So thank you. For saving more than just your team. For saving guys like me who forgot what we were fighting for. Marshall saluted. A full formal salute. And one by one, every veteran in that room stood and saluted with him. Active duty, retired, Army, Navy, Marines. All of them recognizing something bigger than rank, or medals, or glory. Daniel returned the salute. Then he picked up Emma and walked off the stage. Outside, Elena caught up with them. That was incredible. You just changed the national conversation about military service and fatherhood. I just told the truth. The truth is powerful. She paused. Listen, I know you want to go back to your normal life, but there are a lot of organizations that want to work with you. Veterans groups, fatherhood initiatives, mental health advocacy. You could make a real difference. Elena, I appreciate it, but my answer is the same as it's always been. Emma comes first. What if she came with you? What if you did speaking engagements together? Show people what choosing family looks like in practice. Daniel looked at Emma. What do you think baby want to help daddy tell people about being brave? Emma thought about it. Can we still have pancake mornings? Always. And movie nights? Every Friday? Then okay, but only if you want to. Daniel turned to Elena. One event a month. Us. That's it. Local only, no travel. And if Emma says she's done, we're done. Deal. Deal. They shook on it. As they walked to the parking lot, Daniel's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him. Hello. Is this Daniel Reed? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yes. Mr. Reed, my name is Patricia Morrison. I'm Commander James Morrison's wife. I'm calling to apologize for my husband's behavior and to ask if you would be willing to meet with our son, Tommy. Daniel stopped walking. I'm listening. After the ceremony, after everything that happened, my husband and I had a long talk with Tommy. About respect, about bullying, about what real strength looks like. Tommy wants to apologize to Emma. In person, if you'll allow it. Daniel looked at Emma. It's your choice, baby. Do you want to hear what Tommy has to say? Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, if he's really sorry. She says yes. But Mrs. Morrison, understand this. If your son hurts my daughter again in any way, there won't be a second chance. I understand. And Mr. Reed, thank you for showing all of us what matters. They arranged to meet at a park the next day. Daniel hung up, and Emma asked, why are you giving him another chance? Because people deserve the opportunity to be better than they were, just like people gave me chances when I messed up. Did you mess up a lot? More than I'd like to admit. The next afternoon, they met the Morrisons at the park. Commander Morrison looked smaller, somehow humbled. His wife, Patricia, was kind-eyed and nervous. And Tommy stood between them looking at his shoes. Emma walked right up to him. Hi, Tommy. Tommy looked up. His eyes were red. Hi, Emma. I'm sorry. For everything I said. About your dad. About you. I was mean and I was wrong, and I'm really, really sorry. Why were you mean? Tommy glanced at his parents. Because I thought being tough meant being mean. But your dad showed me that being tough means being kind even when it's hard. And I want to be like that. Emma studied him carefully. Then she held out her hand. Okay, I forgive you. But if you're mean again, I'll punch you again. Tommy laughed nervously. Deal. The kids ran off to play on the swings. The adults stood in awkward silence until Patricia spoke. Mr. Reed, I wanted to thank you personally. My husband has been distant from our family for years, always focused on his career, his next promotion, his image. But watching you, seeing what you chose, it woke something up in him. He requested a shore duty assignment. He's going to be home more. With us. With Tommy. Because of you. Commander Morrison nodded. I've spent 20 years trying to be the best officer I could be. And in the process, I forgot to be a good father. You reminded me which one matters more. So thank you. I mean that. Daniel shook his hand. Just love your kid. Show up. That's all it takes. They watched the kids play for an hour. Emma and Tommy laughing together, the past forgiven, if not forgotten. As the sun started to set, the Morrisons said their goodbyes and left. Emma climbed into Daniel's arms. That was good. Tommy's not so bad when he's not being mean. People usually aren't. Daddy, are we still going to be normal? After all this, after everyone knows who you are. Daniel carried her to the truck. Baby, we were never normal. We were always us, and that's better than normal any day. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel sat on the couch and thought about everything that had happened. The ceremony, the press conference, the apologies, the attention. It was overwhelming and exhausting, and not at all what he wanted. But then he thought about Marcus Webb's message. About James Chen requesting a transfer to be with his daughter. about Admiral Marshall reconnecting with his sons, about Commander Morrison choosing shore duty, about Tommy Morrison learning what real strength looks like. Maybe Elena was right. Maybe the truth was powerful. Maybe his story could help other people make better choices. Maybe Lone Eagle's legacy wasn't the missions he ran or the medals he earned. Maybe it was showing people that there's more than one way to be brave. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. News networks are reporting a spike in calls to veteran mental health hotlines. Fathers reaching out for help. Veterans talking about their struggles. You did that, Daniel. You opened a door that needed to be opened. Daniel typed back. I just told my story. Sometimes that's all it takes. He set down his phone and walked to Emma's room. She was sprawled across her bed, rabbit tucked under one arm, the Medal of Honor Daniel had brought home sitting on her nightstand, where she'd insisted on keeping it. So you remember what's important, she'd said when she put it there. Daniel kissed her forehead. I love you, baby. She stirred but didn't wake, just mumbled, Love you too, Daddy. And in that moment, Daniel Reed once Lone Eagle legendary SEAL hero to thousands, knew with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. Not the easy choice, not the glorious choice, but the right one. The only one that mattered. 3 weeks after the press conference, Daniel stood in the kitchen making breakfast when Emma asked the question he'd been dreading. Daddy, are you happy? He looked up from the eggs. What kind of question is that? Mrs. Chen asked me yesterday if you were happy. She said you gave up so much for me. I told her you were, but I wanted to make sure. Daniel turned off the stove and knelt beside her chair. Emma, listen to me. Before you came into my life, I was good at my job. Really good. But I was also lonely. I was also scared all the time. I was also wondering if any of it mattered. Then I got that phone call about your mom, and when I walked into that office and saw you sitting there with your rabbit, everything changed. You didn't take anything from me, baby. You gave me everything. You gave me purpose. You gave me a reason to come home. You gave me love. So yes, I'm happy. The happiest I've ever been. Emma threw her arms around his neck. I'm happy too, even with all the weird stuff happening. The weird stuff was an understatement. In 3 weeks, Daniel's story had exploded across the country. The video of the press conference had 40 million views. Major news outlets ran features. A best-selling author reached out about writing his biography. 3 different film studios sent offers. Veterans organizations invited him to speak at conferences. Parent advocacy groups wanted him as a spokesperson. And through it all, Daniel said no to almost everything. He agreed to one speaking engagement at a local veterans center. He did one interview with a military podcast. He allowed a photographer to take pictures of him and Emma for a magazine article about modern fatherhood. But he refused the book deals, the movie offers, the multi-city speaking tours. I'm not a product, he told Elena over coffee one morning. And I'm not going to let them turn Emma's life into entertainment. I understand. But Daniel, you could help a lot of people. The veteran suicide rate has actually dropped in the last 3 weeks. Counselors are saying men are reaching out talking about their struggles because you made it okay to be vulnerable. You made it okay to choose family. That matters. It matters more that Emma gets to be a kid, that we get to have normal days, that people stop treating us like we're special. You are special. No, we're just people trying to do our best, that's all. But normal was becoming harder to find. Reporters still occasionally showed up at their apartment. Strangers recognized Daniel at the grocery store. Emma's school had to implement new security protocols because parents kept asking to meet them. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. Daniel was picking Emma up from school when he noticed a man with a camera standing across the street. Not a reporter, just someone with a phone recording them. Emma saw him too and grabbed Daniel's hand tighter. I don't like that, Daddy. I know. Come on, let's go. As they walked to the truck, the man followed them, still recording. Daniel's jaw tightened. He helped Emma into her seat, then turned to face the man. "Can I help you?" "Just wanted to get some footage of Lone Eagle. My brother served under you in Iraq. Wanted to show him." "I appreciate that, but my daughter doesn't need to be on camera. Please delete that footage." "It's just for my brother, man. He's a huge fan." Daniel stepped closer, his voice low and controlled. "I'm asking you nicely. Delete the footage. Now." Something in Daniel's eyes must have convinced him, because the man's bravado crumbled. He deleted the video and walked away quickly. Daniel got in the truck, hands shaking. Emma touched his arm. "Are you mad?" "No, baby. Just tired." "Me too. Can we go home and watch a movie?" "Just us?" "Yeah, that sounds perfect." But when they got home, Admiral Elena Carter was waiting outside their door with 2 cups of coffee and a folder. "I know," she said before Daniel could speak. "I know you want peace, but I have something you need to see." Inside, with Emma watching cartoons in the living room, Elena opened the folder. Inside were letters, hundreds of them. Handwritten notes from veterans, from fathers, from people all over the country. "These arrived at the base over the last 3 weeks, Elena explained. "All addressed to you. I've been sorting through them. Most are thank you notes, but some are more than that." She handed him one. Daniel read it aloud softly. "Dear Commander Reed, my name is Michael Torres. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, 2 tours in Afghanistan. When I came home, I was diagnosed with PTSD. My marriage fell apart. My kids barely knew me. I was planning to end my life on November 3rd. But on November 2nd, I saw your press conference. I heard you talk about choosing love over glory, about being present over being perfect. And something in me broke open. I called the Veteran Crisis Line. I'm getting help now. I'm rebuilding my relationship with my kids. I'm learning to be the father they deserve. You saved my life, sir. Not in combat, but in the hardest battle I've ever fought. Thank you." Daniel's hands were trembling. He set down the letter and picked up another. "Commander Reed, I'm a single mother of 2. My ex-husband is a Navy pilot who chose his career over our family. For years I told my kids their father didn't love them because if he did, he'd be here. But after hearing your story, I realize it's more complicated than that. Some people don't know how to choose. Some people don't know it's okay to walk away from glory. I'm teaching my kids now that love is a choice, and sometimes the people we want to choose us just don't know how. Thank you for showing them what choosing looks like." Elena handed him a 3rd letter. This one was written in crayon. "Dear Lone Eagle, my name is Sophie. I'm 7. My daddy is in the Army. He's gone a lot. Sometimes I'm sad, but my mom showed me your story and said that even when daddies are far away, they still love us, and that some daddies get to stay home like you do. I'm happy your little girl gets to have you every day. She's lucky. Love, Sophie." Daniel couldn't read anymore. He set down the letters and pressed his palms against his eyes. "There are 432 letters," Elena said quietly. "Every single one from someone whose life you've touched. Veterans getting help. Fathers choosing to be present. Kids understanding that love looks different for everyone. Daniel, you didn't just tell your story. You gave people permission to write their own. I don't know what to do with this." "You don't have to do anything. Just know that what you did mattered. That your choice rippled out further than you'll ever know." After Elena left, Daniel sat at the kitchen table and read every single letter. Some made him cry. Some made him angry at a system that had failed so many people. Some made him proud. All of them made him realize that his story was never just about him and Emma. It was about every person struggling to balance duty and love, service and family, who they were supposed to be and who they wanted to be. That night, Emma found him still at the table, surrounded by letters. "What are those?" "Letters from people who saw us on TV, people who wanted to say thank you." Emma climbed into his lap and picked up one. "Can you read this one to me?" Daniel chose carefully and read one from a father who had started having dinner with his kids every night after years of working late. Emma listened quietly, then said, That's nice. He sounds like a good daddy now. Yeah, he does. Daddy, do you think Lone Eagle would be proud of you? The question hit him like a physical blow. What do you mean? I mean, Lone Eagle was brave and strong and saved people. Do you think he'd be proud that you're just a regular dad now? Daniel thought about how to answer. Really thought about it. Emma, Lone Eagle, and I are the same person. I'm not different now. I'm just brave in a different way. Lone Eagle saved people from bad guys. But Daniel Reed, your dad, he's trying to save you from a world that tells you love isn't enough, that being present isn't important, that glory matters more than showing up. So yeah, I think Lone Eagle would be proud. Because I'm still fighting, just for different things. Emma hugged him tight. I think he'd be proud too. The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He called Elena. I want to do one more thing, one last speaking engagement, but on my terms. I'm listening. I want to speak at the Veteran Center. Not about tactics or missions or war stories. About the transition home. About finding purpose after service. About being okay with not being a hero anymore. About choosing family. Can you set that up? Consider it done. 2 weeks later, Daniel stood in front of 300 veterans at the San Diego Veterans Center. No cameras, no press. Just men and women who'd served who were struggling to find their place in a world that had moved on without them. Emma sat in the front row next to Elena. She'd insisted on coming wearing her yellow dress again. Daniel cleared his throat and began. My name is Daniel Reed. Most of you know me as Lone Eagle. But I haven't been that person in 3 years. And honestly, I don't want to be that person again. Not because I'm ashamed of what I did, but because I've learned that there's more to life than being a legend. There's being a father. There's being present. There's being human. He talked for 40 minutes. About the missions that still haunted him. About the moment he chose Emma over the Navy. About the 3 years he spent invisible, mocked, and happier than he'd ever been. About learning that strength isn't just endurance, it's vulnerability. It's admitting you need help. It's choosing love, even when the world tells you it's weak. When he finished, the room was silent. Then a man in the back stood up. He was maybe 50, gray hair missing his left arm. Commander Reed, I'm Jack Phillips, Army Ranger retired. I've been out for 5 years and I still don't know who I am without the uniform. How did you do it? How did you let go of being Lone Eagle? Daniel thought about it. I didn't let go of being Lone Eagle. I just realized that Lone Eagle was one part of who I am. Not all of me. I'm also a father. I'm also a guy who burns toast and can't braid hair properly and cries at kids' movies. I'm complex. We all are. The military teaches us to be one thing. Warriors. Operators. Heroes. But we're more than that. We're allowed to be more than that. And the sooner we accept that, the sooner we can actually heal. A woman stood up next. But what if being a warrior was the best part of us? What if everything after feels like we're settling? Then you're measuring the wrong things. I used to think the best part of me was the part that could clear rooms and run missions and bring men home. But you know what the actual best part of me is? The part that makes my daughter laugh. The part that shows up every day, even when I'm tired. The part that loves without condition. That's not settling. That's evolving. For the next hour, veterans shared their stories, their struggles, their fears, their guilt over leaving, their anger at being forgotten, their confusion about purpose. And Daniel listened. Really listened. Not as Lone Eagle the legend, but as Daniel the man who understood exactly what they were feeling. At the end, a young Marine, couldn't be more than 25, stood up with tears streaming down his face. Sir, I've been out for 6 months. I did 2 tours. I came home and my girlfriend left me. My friends don't understand me. My family treats me like I'm broken. I don't know how to be normal. I don't know how to care about normal things. And I'm so tired of fighting to fit into a world that doesn't want me anymore. Daniel walked down from the stage and stood in front of the young Marine. What's your name? Ryan Garcia. Ryan, look at me. You're not broken. You're transitioning, and transition is hard. It's supposed to be hard. You spent years learning to be a warrior. It's going to take time to learn how to be a civilian. But here's what I need you to understand. The world does want you. It needs you. It needs men and women who understand sacrifice, discipline, and commitment. It needs people who know how to push through hard things. You just have to find where you fit. And that takes time. So give yourself grace. Give yourself permission to struggle. Give yourself the same patience you'd give a brother in arms. Can you do that? Ryan nodded, unable to speak. Daniel pulled him into a hug, and the young Marine broke down completely. Other veterans stood up, came forward, started hugging each other, crying together, sharing the pain they'd been carrying alone. Elena watched from the side, tears in her own eyes. And Emma, sitting in the front row, watched her father hold broken men together with nothing but presence and understanding. And she finally understood why everyone called him a hero. After the event, as people were leaving, an older man approached Daniel. He had to be 70, wearing a Vietnam veteran cap. "Son, I never had anyone tell me it was okay to struggle. When I came home in 1971, people spit on me, called me a baby killer. I buried it all. The trauma, the guilt, the confusion. For 50 years I buried it. Tonight, for the first time in my life, I feel like maybe it's okay to let it out. So thank you. You didn't just help these young folks. You helped an old man too." Daniel shook his hand. "It's never too late to heal, sir. Never." On the drive home, Emma was quiet. Finally, she said, "Daddy, those people really needed you. They needed someone to tell them the truth. That's all. Will you do more talks? Help more people?" Daniel glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Would that be okay with you?" "Yeah. As long as we still have pancake mornings and movie nights." "Always, baby. Always." Over the next few months, Daniel did speak occasionally. Always at veteran centers. Always unpaid. Always on his terms. But most days, he was just Emma's dad. He found a job at a local community center teaching self-defense to kids. He helped Emma with school projects. He coached her soccer team. He had coffee with Elena once a week and talked about life, not missions. Admiral Marshall became a friend. They met for breakfast once a month, and Marshall would talk about reconnecting with his sons, about learning to be present, about unlearning decades of putting career first. Commander Morrison and his family became close to them. Tommy and Emma became real friends, and watching them play together. Daniel was reminded that forgiveness is stronger than grudges, and kids understand that better than adults ever will. Marcus Webb called every Sunday. They'd talk for hours, catching up, sharing stories, and Marcus would always end the call the same way. "You're still my brother Danny. Still the best of us. I'm just trying to be good enough for her. You're more than enough. Trust me." On the 1-year anniversary of the press conference, Daniel woke to find Emma sitting at the kitchen table with a piece of construction paper covered in marker drawings. "What's that, baby?" "It's my family tree for school. See, that's you. That's me. That's Mommy in heaven watching us. And that's all the people who love us." She'd drawn him her, and then dozens of stick figures around them. Elena, Marcus, Admiral Marshall, Commander Morrison, Tommy, Mrs. Chen, the veterans from the center, all connected by lines and hearts. "That's beautiful, Emma." Ms. Wilson said family isn't just blood. It's people who choose to love you. Is that true? Yeah, baby. That's exactly true. She smiled and added one more figure to the drawing. A stick person with wings. That's Lone Eagle. He's part of our family too, because he's you, and you're him, and we're all together. Daniel picked up his daughter and held her close. Outside, the sun was rising over San Diego. Somewhere SEALs were running missions. Admirals were making decisions. Heroes were being made. But in that small apartment, in that quiet moment, Daniel Reed was exactly where he was supposed to be. That afternoon, Daniel took Emma to the beach. They built sandcastles and chased waves and collected shells. A few people recognized him. Some asked for pictures. He politely declined most, but when a veteran approached and asked to shake his hand, Daniel always said yes. One man, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a prosthetic leg, approached cautiously. "Commander Reed, I don't mean to bother you. I just wanted to say thank you. I was one of the men you saved in Kandahar. Team 7. You carried me 3 miles with a bullet in your shoulder and never complained once. I got to watch my daughter grow up because of you. She just graduated college last month. I got to walk her across that stage. Because you didn't leave me behind." Daniel's throat tightened. "What's your name?" "David Chen. You probably don't remember me. There were 7 of us. I remember, you took shrapnel in your leg, wouldn't stop cracking jokes even when you were bleeding. Kept everyone's spirits up." David's eyes filled with tears. "You remember. I remember all of you. Every mission, every face, every person I brought home. Then you also remember the ones you couldn't bring home." Daniel's face went dark. "Yeah, I remember them too." "Do those memories keep you up at night?" "Sometimes." "Me too. But then I look at my daughter, at the life I got to live, and I think about how you gave me that. You gave all of us that. So thank you for carrying us, for remembering us, for showing us what real leadership looks like." They talked for a while longer. David told him about his life, his family, his struggles with PTSD, and his eventual healing. When they finally parted ways, David hugged him hard. "You're still carrying us, you know. By showing people what matters, by choosing Emma. You're still saving lives, just in a different way." After he left, Emma tugged Daniel's hand. "Was he one of your soldier friends?" "Yeah, baby, he was." "You saved him." "I helped him. He saved himself." "Are you going to save more people?" Daniel knelt beside her in the sand. "I'm going to try. Not with guns or missions, but with truth, with presence, with showing up. That's how we save people now. By loving them, by being there, by telling them it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to heal, and it's okay to be more than what the world expects. Can you help me do that?" Emma nodded seriously. "We can do it together. Together, always." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Daniel and Emma sat on the beach and watched the waves. Somewhere in the world, there was war. There was violence. There was pain. But here, in this moment, there was peace. Daniel thought about Lone Eagle, about the missions and the medals and the glory, about the man he used to be. And he realized something profound. He hadn't left Lone Eagle behind. He'd transformed him. The same courage that led him into combat now led him through fatherhood. The same discipline that made him an elite operator now helped him show up every day for Emma. The same strength that saved his team now saved his daughter from a world that tried to tell her love wasn't enough. Lone Eagle wasn't dead. He'd just found a new mission. The most important mission. Raising hope instead of soldiers. Building love instead of legends. Proving that peace has a uniform too, and sometimes it looks like worn jeans and a t-shirt covered in pancake batter. Emma leaned against his shoulder. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby. I love you more than anything in the whole world." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "I love you more than anything too. More than missions, more than medals, more than glory. You're my everything, Emma. My purpose, my mission, my reason. Even more than being Lone Eagle. Especially more than being Lone Eagle." They sat there until the stars came out, father and daughter, legend and legacy, warrior and child, together against the darkness. And in that moment, Daniel Reed, once Lone Eagle legendary Navy SEAL, realized he'd finally come home. Not to a country, not to a base, not to a uniform, but to himself, to love, to the quiet, hard, beautiful work of being fully human. And that was the greatest mission of all. As they walked back to the truck, hand in hand, Emma said, "Daddy, tell me a story." "What kind of story?" "A story about a hero who didn't need to fight anymore, who just needed to love." Daniel smiled. Once upon a time, there was a warrior who thought his purpose was to save the world. But then he met a little girl who taught him that sometimes saving the world starts with saving just one person, and that one person can change everything. Is that us? Yeah, baby, that's us. Emma squeezed his hand. I like that story. Me too. Best story I've ever been part of. They drove home through the city lights of San Diego, leaving the ocean behind but carrying its peace with them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, new opportunities to choose love over glory. But tonight, they were just Daniel and Emma, father and daughter. Two people who found each other in the wreckage of loss and built something beautiful from the ruins. And somewhere in the darkness, a lone eagle flew across the moon, not hunting, not fighting, not proving anything to anyone, just flying free. Finally, completely, perfectly free.